Hello again. We continue our discussion on logic models. Like we discussed in the previous video, a logic model is a systematic and visual way to present and share your understanding of the relationships among the resources you have to operate a program, the activities you're planning to implement, and the changes or results you hope to achieve. The most basic logic model is a picture on how you believe your program will work. Right? And it uses words or pictures and graphics to describe the sequence of activities thought to bring about change and how these activities are linked to the results the program is expected to achieve. In the previous video, we talked about theory approach models. In that video, we discussed that the center of a theory approach model is the problem statement. And we use a theory approach logic model to explain how our program relates to the social problem we have identified and how it affects the contributing factors and addresses the needs our community has to achieve some desired outcomes. In the theory approach model, we also lay out the assumptions that we are holding that will determine the success of the program. Now, we in the theory approach model, we are explaining the why a program is needed and how it will solve the problem in general. That's one approach. The theory approach model is good to show why a program is needed and how it addresses a problem. But now we get to a more specific type of logic model, and this one is the outcome approach model. In the outcome approach model, we display the interrelationships between specific program activities and their outcomes. This type of model emphasizes the causal linkages, right, thought to exist among program components. These are read from left to right, and the arrows show which sets of activities program developers believe would contribute to what outcomes. These statements serve as logical assertions about the perceived relationships among program operations and desired results. Now, this is the hallmark of the logic model process, right? What is needed and what will be accomplished with that that is needed, right? It's a sequence of if and then logic, right? So we start with a problem, right? If we have a problem, we require a solution, right? Now, for this solution, we need some resources. If we have access to these resources, then we can use to accomplish these planned activities. If we implement these activities, then we will have some results in terms of people served or resources being distributed, right, to participants. If these resources are distributed and these results are obtained, then we expect some outcomes in terms of changes in behavior or changes in conditions. And if we achieve these outcomes, then we will see a big social change, which is the goal of our program. And that big social change is, of course, to solve the problem that we have in the beginning. So an outcome approach logic model is going to show us the connection between the resources needed to the goal of the program. A well-crafted logic model can assert that it is reasonable to claim that your program made a substantive contribution to your intended change. Community-based initiatives operate in complex environments where scientific certainty of proof is hard to achieve. So if we have laid out a good theory of how we are making change, That helps us evaluate our program. That helps us to explain how our program, how it is contributing resources to solve a problem. Right? It's explaining exactly the mechanism that we are using to solve the problem, translating dollars into results. That's that's what the outcome logic model is going to show, and it's extremely important to have it so that in the future we can evaluate the program. In this logic model, we have a complete map of how the program is intended to work. And we will use that when we are evaluating it in the future. So the components of an outcome logic model are on your screen right now. Right? It is read left to right, right? But it's constructed from right to left. Right? You start with your impact, which is your program goal. Right? And this is a statement of your future social change the program is intended to achieve. If you're going to get to that goal, then some outcomes have to be met. Right? And the outcome objectives, which we discussed in a previous lecture, they are statements of the specific changes on conditions or behaviors expected as a result of your program being implemented. But in order to achieve these outcomes, you need some outputs. Right? You need some results of activities. Right? And these outputs are the data about activities. There are specific numbers and results of these implemented activities. Now, the outputs are going to be achieved only, right, if activities are implemented. And the activities are the activities required by the intervention you are implementing in your program, right? They're the specific nuts and bolts of the intervention implementation. Now, the activities are the cornerstone of your program. That's the day-to-day functioning of your program. These are the activities that hold your program. But to implement those activities, you need resources. You need some inputs. Right? And the inputs are resources needed to implement the activities. They can be monetary or in kind. Now, when read from left to right, the statements you're making are, these are the inputs I need. If I get all these resources, then I will implement all these activities that comprise my intervention. If I implement the activities like I want to, I will get some output. I will serve this many participants. If this output is achieved, if all these participants are served, then we will achieve some outcomes. We will see some changes in behavior or their condition. And if we see some changes in participants' behavior or their condition, then we will see an end social change. This is an outcomes approach model, and it's letting funders and stakeholders know exactly how much resources you need, how you're going to spend them, which activities are you going to spend them, what is going to come out of those activities, what changes are going to result from them, and the overall impact they will have on the community. Right? So again, the impact refers to the results expected after your program is fully implemented. It's the future social change your program is working to create. Right? Impacts come straight from your goal. Right? The goal, the long-term goal, the long-term horizon we have for implementing our program is that impact that we want to achieve. It's that goal, and it's directly related to the problem you want to solve. Then you have the outcomes, and these outcomes are, of course, your outcome objectives that we discussed in the previous lecture. There are specific changes that you want to see, like attitudes, behaviors, knowledge, skills, status, or level of functioning expected to result from your program, right? And these are specific statements, right? Specific, measurable, clear, uh, um, realistic, and timely. Now, in order to achieve these outcomes, you need some outputs, right? And the outputs are what results from the activities. They are the direct results of the program activities. They're usually described in terms of size and scope of the services and products delivered or produced by the program. They're the products of your program. They indicate whether or not a program was delivered in the intended way, right? It's the program output. For example, this may be the number of classes that you taught, the number of participants that attended your services, the number of participants that were reached, and so forth. Now, in order to achieve this output or these results, you need to implement these activities. And the activities are, of course, the cornerstone of your program, right? What are the activities that were planned? What are the intervention? What is the intervention? If the intervention is, I don't know, delivering a curriculum in school, then the activities will be this delivery of the curriculum, recruiting children, testing the children, and so forth, right? These include products, promotional materials, counseling, health screening, all of the activities that are required by your intervention, right? Now, in order to implement these activities, of course, you need resources, and these are the inputs. And we call it inputs because they're not only monetary resources, right? There can also be in-kind resources like partnerships or memorandums of understanding. Let me give you an example of an outcomes logic model we created for a program called No Zip Code Left Behind. Right? So let's read it from the left. We were requiring inputs, which are resources that we needed to implement activities, and this was the budget that we needed to implement these activities. So we needed money, right? A specific amount of funds required to recruit clients, money required to implement, to buy, acquire, lease new facilities, money required to train personnel and hire personnel, money to recruit and implement personnel and implement a sovereign center, memorandums of understanding with stakeholders, in this case the sheriff office, and money to secure and lease locations to deliver mental health services and to train personnel. This was pretty much a budget, an amount of information, amount of money needed to implement what the interventions we wanted to implement, and the in-kind resources that we needed. If we got this, then we promised to implement several activities, right? Implement outreach efforts, implement new inpatient services through Sunstreet Center, implement new outpatient centers, implement a new sovereign center, implement a reentry vocational and employment support service, and implement new case management system for mental health patients. Now, these activities here are in general, but it was a lot more detailed what went into each of these. Now, if we implemented this, then we would get some outputs. This is the product of the activities. So we said, if we get these resources in the 3 years of program, we will recruit 500 new clients per year. 300 new clients will receive inpatient SVT treatment. 300 would receive outpatient mental health treatment, or 1,000 individuals arrested, instead of going to jail, they would go to a sovereign center, and so forth. And we believe, because of the theories out there, that if we get to these outputs, that we provide these outputs, we're going to see a reduction of 50% in SUD, that we would decrease recidivism by 60%, and that we would get a number of reclassifications from felonies to misdemeanors, and we will reduce the number of jail bookings by 75%. Now, if we did all this, we think that we're going to reduce recidivism in the county by 20%. So this is an outcome logic model that is describing how much money we needed, how we were going to expend it in activities, how those activities were going to translate in results for participants, and what changes we were going to expect to see, specific changes in clients, and then the changes at a community level to solve the problem. Now, if you want to learn more about logic models, I suggest that you go to the Kellogg Foundation and look for the Logic Model Development Guide. It is a fantastic resource. That concludes our discussion on logic models. I will see you soon. Thank you for watching.